views and opinions expressed on My Story Living with Lupus podcast represents each person's individual experience. By listening to this podcast or reading our blog, you agree not to use this podcast or blog as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. As always, consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. My Story Living with Lupus podcast is officially trademarked, all rights reserved. Thank you for joining me for another episode of My Story Living with Lupus. I'm your host, Susan Hendricks, and I'm so glad that you could join me on this Friday. Today's topic is Trump administration argues migrant children don't need soap. We're talking about human rights. So you know what I want you to do? I want you to grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and if you're listening late at night, you know I appreciate it. Grab your favorite glass of wine and come on and join me right here on My Story Living with Lupus. Do you really understand what human rights consist of? All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and consensus and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political, or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Everyone has the right to life, liberty. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. All are equal before the law and are entitled, without any discrimination, to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or the law. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. Everyone is entitled, in full equality, to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations and of any criminal charge against him. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. Everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of persecution generally arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. Everyone has the right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. Men and women of full age, without any limitations due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Everyone has the right to own property alone, as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference, and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Think about that. He is the author of Positive Energy 24/7 and his latest book, It Was Destined, Urban Legend. He's Detroit's own author, Henry Long. To purchase an autographed copy of his book and to purchase his ebook, go to WritePath247.com. That's WritePath247.com. You can also follow him on Instagram at WritePath247. Trump administration argues migrant children don't need soap. Children in Border Patrol custody aren't guaranteed access to basic hygiene or bedding. The Justice Department tells incredulous judges. The government is not required to provide migrant children in custody on the border with soap, toothbrushes, or adequate bedding. A lawyer for the Trump Justice Department insisted in court Tuesday a consent decree guaranteeing safe and sanitary conditions, the government argued, is too vague to be enforceable. The assertion left a panel of 3 judges of appeals with one stating plainly, "I find that inconceivable that the government would say that." The case before the court stems from the Flores settlement, a consent decree signed by the government in 1997 that guarantees basic rights for children detained at the border. The Trump administration has repeatedly sought to undermine the 2-decade-old agreement, in particular, as it pursued its policy of family separation. Currently, the administration is appealing a 2017 district court ruling that found the feds had violated Flores by not providing children access to basic toiletries and adequate sleeping conditions at temporary detention facilities operated by the Border Patrol. As attorney Sarah Fabian of the Justice Department Office of Immigration's Litigation attempted to make the Trump administration's case in a San Francisco courtroom, she was hit with disbelieving questions from the 3 judges on the bench. Judge Berzon zeroed in on the sleep question, citing findings that the Border Patrol made children spend days in facilities with 24/7 artificial light, no beds, cold cement floors, and only an aluminum blanket for insulation. You're really going to stand up and tell us that being able to sleep isn't a question of safe and sanitary conditions, Berzon asked. You're not really going to say that, right? Fabian, the Justice Department lawyer, managed a spurting response before Berzon. broke in again to insist sleep is covered by the language of the consent decree. You can't be sanitary or safe as a human being if you can't sleep, she said. Fabian suggested that sleep is not guaranteed because it is not spelled out in the language of the Flores Agreement. One has to assume it was not enumerated by the parties because either the parties couldn't reach agreement on how to enumerate that or it was left to the agencies to determine, she said. Judge Fletcher cut in, insisting it is obvious enough that if you're putting people into a crowded room to sleep on a concrete floor with an aluminum blanket on top of them, that doesn't comply with the agreement? Fabian conceded. She was on shaky ground when it came to depriving migrant children of a right to rest. I will acknowledge that sleep is at the more difficult edge of what I'm arguing. Judge Berzon noted, we have a Supreme Court decision saying it is unconstitutional to make homeless people not sleep. The Justice Department lawyer countered. We're not talking about the constitutional standard here. The exchange continued. Fletcher, are you arguing seriously that you do not read the argument as requiring you to do something other than what I described? Cold all night long, lights on all night long, sleep on the concrete floor, and you get an aluminum blanket. Berzon stated, and too crowded to lie down. Fletcher, are you saying that that's okay? I find that inconceivable that the government would say that that is safe and sanitary. Fabian stated again, as I said, think sleep is clearly at one end of the findings. The proceedings then turned to hygiene items. Judge Fletcher took issue with the government's claim that the consent decree didn't guarantee any specific items. It was soap, said Judge Fletcher. That sounds like part of safe and sanitary. Do you disagree with that? Judge Tashmina cut in. Granted that the decree doesn't have a list of items that has to be supplied in order to be sanitary, but he insisted it's within everybody's common understanding. If you don't have a toothbrush, if you don't have soap, if you don't have a blanket, it's not safe and sanitary. Wouldn't everybody agree to that? Do you agree to that? Fabian responded with this. Well, I think there's fair reason to find that those things may be part of safe and sanitary. Not maybe, are a part, Tashmina cut in. Why do you say maybe? You mean there are circumstances where a person doesn't need to have a toothbrush, toothpaste, and soap for days? When Fabian deflected, Tashmina redirected his questioning, trying to draw an argument out of the government's lawyer. You're saying maybe the argument is so vague as to be unenforceable, Tashmina asked. That's really your argument, isn't it? To some extent, yes, Your Honor, Fabian replied. If the term in the argument requires an after-argument interpretation by the district court, then yes, that does constitute a vague term that the parties didn't sufficiently clarify in reaching arguments. I'll be back. Stay tuned. Entrepreneur and creator of Right Side of 50, and I am my sister's keeper, Sheila Smith, motivational and empowerment speaker, is available for your next empowerment event and conference. You can book her for your next event at rightside50@gmail.com. That's RIGHTSIDEOF50@gmail.com or call 470-330-1426. Each one encourage one. All aboard First Time Cruisers, presented by Parisian Park Dreams and Things. Cruise with a twist, Right Side of 50, hosting a session, stepping into my newness, door prizes, raffles, and fun in the sun. April the 2nd through April 6th, 2020, Jacksonville Cruise Port, Jacksonville, Florida. Deposit $150 due July 10th, 2019. Ports of call: Freeport and Nassau. $579 Ocean View per person. $554 interior per person. Contact 770-982-9399 and ask for D Parks. If you would like to appear on an episode of My Story Living with Lupus, you can contact us at mystorylivingwithlupus@gmail.com. Also visit us on our Instagram page and also our website, My Story Living with Lupus. I know that this subject is a touchy subject to some, but for me, I don't mind standing alone. You know, if I came on here gossiping or degrading someone, people would be all into it, but that's not me. I stand for more than that, and that's why I stand alone. You see, you have to stand alone for the truth. And when you are standing alone for the truth, you don't let anything faze you. And I don't. I don't let anything faze me. This is inhumane. It's a violation of these children's human rights. And it is modern day slavery. Yes, I understand that you're trying to control who comes across the border. I understand that. Yeah. And I also understand people looking for a better life, a better way from what they're used to living. Did anybody think about the scars that will be left behind on these children? Can you imagine parents wondering about their child? How is their child doing? Yes, some have been separated from their parents. And you know, even some of you may say, well, that's not my problem. They had no business trying to come over here. If you're going to come over here, you come in the right way. But watch what you say. Because it was a group of people that was forced to come over here. And I'll say it again. It was a group of people that was forced to come over here. And now you're probably saying, oh, there she goes, trying to play the race card. I'm not playing the race card. I'm telling you the hard, cold facts. This is modern day slavery. It's a violation of these children's human rights. And you would not treat a dog that way. You would take better care of a dog than you would these children. Think about it. You put Susie to bed tonight. You gave her a bath with soap. She dried off with a clean towel. She has toothpaste. She has a toothbrush. And when she laid down in her nice mattress and her head is laying upon that pillow, think about those children that's laying on cold concrete with no soap, no toothbrushes, no toothpaste. It's a violation of human rights. And yes, I stand alone. Are we not supposed to love our neighbor? Are we not supposed to treat one another like we would want to be treated? Regardless of the melanin in my skin. Yes, I stand alone. Because if I came on here talking about nonsense, people would be all into it. But I'm talking about reality. This is not nonsense. We're talking about innocent children who cannot fend for themselves being treated in this manner. I want you to think about that. And before you get in your nice warm shower or take your nice warm bath with your soap and use your toothbrush with your toothpaste, you think about those children who have not been clean, who are living in unsanitary, inhumane conditions. And you think about the person who is supposedly the head of this country. who wants this enforced? Think about it. I'm Susan Hendricks. For my story, Living with Lupus and Imparting, remember this about me. I take up the whole armor of God, that I may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand firm, stand therefore having fastened on my belt of truth, and having put on my breastplate of righteousness, and as my shoes for my feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. Thank you for joining me. And may you say a prayer for those children. The views and opinions expressed on my story, Living with Lupus podcast, represents each person's individual experience. By listening to this podcast or reading our blog, you agree not to use this podcast or blog as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. As always, consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. My Story Living with Lupus podcast is officially trademarked, all rights reserved.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.